Making a master louder than other tracks looks a bit different than it used to. Normalization has significantly changed how a listener perceives loudness, but there are still some ways to make your song stick out and sound louder even after normalization. Now, you might have even noticed that your normalized songs sound quieter than others. If that's the case, this video should help you figure out and address the issues causing that. Now, fair warning, this video might be a little dry and technical, but knowing this info is super helpful if you plan to release music or mix and master for other people. So, let's cover how to make your song loud in the age of normalization. Starting off, let's understand the ITU K-weighted standard. So for most music, a two-channel model of the standard is used. The left and the right inputs are fed into independent K-weighted filters. The average loudness, or RMS, is then measured for each channel. A gate is then used to remove anything below -70 LUFS from the measurement. The signals are summed, multiplied by a logarithmic function to give each channel a specific value, which in a stereo track, the left and the right channels are valued identically. And lastly, a second gate negates anything 10 dB below the current measurement. So for most streaming services, they use a standard when they're measuring a master's LUFS. So if we want our tracks to sound louder, our ultimate goal here is to make the meter measure our master as quieter than it subjectively sounds. So for example, if we can make the master sound like it's -9 LUFS, but the meter measures it as -10 LUFS, then when it's normalized to a target loudness of -14 LUFS, it'll be turned down by roughly 4 dB instead of 5 dB. As a result, our master will sound 1 dB louder than others. Now, in determining the loudness, K-weighting is used to approximate the loudness at which we perceive frequencies more closely. To emulate how we hear low frequencies as quieter, a 12 dB per octave high-pass filter is set around 100 Hz. And to emulate how we perceive high frequencies as louder, there's a 4 dB shelf amplifying to kHz and above by 4 dB. Figuring out how to optimize a track for this standard took a lot of testing, so before I show you the primary way to increase perceived loudness after normalization, I want to cover what doesn't lower the measured LUFS. So looking at this K-weighted chart, you'd assume, or at least I did, that removing imperceivable or barely perceivable frequencies would lower the LUFS. For example, if you have a master and you attenuated everything below 30 Hz and everything above 20 kHz, it makes sense that removing these ranges would lower the LUFS. Now, even Spotify claims that some tracks sound louder or quieter after normalization because these frequencies cause less accurate LUFS readings. But everything that I measured shows that it makes no difference with the integrated LUFS and barely changes any other metrics. So, what makes a track sound louder on Spotify, or any other streaming service for that matter? Well, the leading cause is a higher true peak level. For example, the track Guess by Charlie XCX and Billie Eilish sounds incredibly loud, even after normalization. Without normalization, the LUFS is -7.5. Now, since dB and loudness units have a 1-to-1 ratio in the K-weighted ITU standard, the peak level for this track normalized to -14 LUFS should be -6.5 dB. However, the normalized version is peaking around -3.5 dB in most places, and I even saw up to -2.7 at one point. So, what's happening here? Well, although the standard measures true peaks, it doesn't measure the distortion that they cause during playback. Since this distortion is dynamic or only occurs when a transient surpasses 0 dB true peak, the distortion increases the loudness whenever a transient hits. As a result, the kick, the snare, and any other aggressive and often percussive transients sound louder even after normalization, since the distortion is not accounted for in the initial measurement used for normalization. That's a big reason this supposed -14 LUFS normalized track measures as -12.5 LUFS when it's recorded into a DAW. The distortion occurs when it's played back, and a new track measurement reveals it's 1.5 loudness units higher than it should be. Now, if you're mastering an aggressive genre, one in which distortion is already a part of the sound, note that if you avoid true peak limiting and let the true peak level go above 0 dB, this additional level will cause distortion that increases the loudness of the track. It's not the best choice for every genre, but in some, this added distortion doesn't sound bad by any means. Now real quick, and if you haven't already, join the Sage Audio membership and get 5 mastering credits per month with your dedicated mastering engineer, 5 one-on-one mixing feedback credits per month, and unlimited access to our in-depth mixing and mastering courses and thriving community. go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description. So next, let's cover how the arrangement affects measured loudness. Now this has more to do with tracking and mixing, but it does have big implications for mastering as well. To better understand how the current loudness standard measures different frequency ranges, I divided white noise and pink noise into 5 ranges each. White noise is linear, so all ranges are equal in amplitude. Pink noise is logarithmic, where it emphasizes the lows and de-emphasizes the highs to more closely match how we perceive the loudness of each frequency range. For a white noise track peaking at -5 dB, -6.6 LUFS is the measured loudness overall. But notice how the lows play a smaller role in the LUFS than the highs. Now anything above 1 kHz causes the meter to measure the track as louder, especially when 10 kHz and above are equal in amplitude to other ranges. For the pink noise track, also peaking at -5 dB, we're getting a measurement of -11.3 LUFS overall. Even though the highs are attenuated significantly and the lows are amplified, the highs still play the most significant role in the measured loudness. Anything above 1 kHz contributes most to the measured loudness of a track. Now, does this mean that when we're mixing or mastering, we should attenuate highs or boost lows more to increase perceived or subjective loudness, but not the measured loudness? Well, in short, no. But this info, paired with a rarely discussed psychoacoustic effect, could be the key to understanding increasing subjective loudness while circumventing measured loudness. Now, I don't know if this effect has a name or to what extent it's been studied, so I'm just going to call it vocal anchoring. This is the idea that the listener anchors the loudness of a song around a vocal. This isn't to say the vocal's frequencies exactly, just the recognition of a vocal itself. If most listeners are geared toward trying to discern what the vocalist is saying or singing, then if the vocal is covered up, masked, or competing with too much instrumentation, most listeners will perceive the overall track as quieter because the primary element, the vocal, can't easily be heard. Now, combining this idea with what we learned about how high ranges create higher measured loudness, and taking a closer look at Guess, the track that we measured earlier, I found something interesting. When the vocal performance is most complex, which in this case occurs in the verses, the vocal is the only melodic instrument in the high range. This causes the overall high range to be lower in amplitude, since again, the vocal is present but not much else. Now to the listener, it sounds loud. The vocal could be heard and it's up front, but to the LUFS meter, it's quiet. The primary ranges that contribute to measured loudness are sparse and lower in amplitude. This causes a lower overall LUFS, even though the listener doesn't perceive it as quieter. Now to demonstrate this, I'll play 2 tracks with identical LUFS settings. For the first track, the vocal will be lowered while the instrumentation is amplified. For the second track, the vocal will be amplified while the instrumentation is lowered. Again, the meter says that the two have the same loudness, but I want to know if one sounds subjectively louder to you. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean. I'll never know what I've never known. Let it go, float on the ocean. We covered a lot in this video, so let's try to wrap up the main ideas. First off, cutting extreme lows or highs doesn't cause a loudness meter to measure the LUFS as lower, at least not in any meaningful way. The distortion caused by true peaks increases the perceived loudness and circumvents the measured loudness by occurring after measurement. LUFS meters prioritize high frequencies, even more than K-weighting filters would suggest. And lastly, reducing melodic info while a vocal is present causes increased subjective loudness while reducing measured loudness. Now, when all of these techniques and concepts are combined, a song can sound significantly louder than another, even if both are normalized to the same LUFS. As I mentioned earlier, and if you haven't already, join the Sage Audio membership and get 5 mastering credits per month with your dedicated mastering engineer, 5 one-on-one mixing feedback credits per month, and unlimited access to our in-depth mixing and mastering courses and thriving community. go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description.